Happy Halloween, everyone. I want to share with you the embellishments that I made for my first ever YouTube swap. The swap I'm participating in is the Halloween Loaded Mini Album swap hosted by Rosa Kelly Scrapbooking. So by the time you're watching this video, the swap will have already happened. I will have already submitted my mini album, but first I wanted to share with you some of the embellishments that I made and how I made them. I will also do a video on a walkthrough of my album, and you can also see all the swap albums on Rosa Kelly's YouTube channel, and so please check that out, and you'll see all the wonderful things that are going to be shared on her channel. So after this, you can check out my walkthrough and then check out Rosa Kelly's or vice versa. So anyway, I'm going to set that aside and let's get started. So the first thing I want to share with you is this ornament. I actually did not make this. I just wanted to share with you how you can take something purchased at a store and just make it fit, you know, the theme of whatever project you're making. This is the original. So to do this, all I did was sponge some Tim Holtz ink onto the paper here and just change out the ribbon. So there you have it. That one was easy peasy. Some of them weren't so easy. So along with my first ever YouTube swap, I did my first ever boho beads, or my take on a boho bead. So I have been looking at tutorial after tutorial on how to make boho beads because I want to make some boho beads for my daughter's gypsy boho album that I'm making for her wedding. And oh my gosh, there's so many tutorials that I can't even tell you how many I've watched. I can't even give credit to one person. There's so many. Just so you know that I did not come up with this idea. This is just my take on a boho bead. Please watch tutorials. There's so many informative tutorials on exactly what step by step on what to do. I'll just briefly show you the process of how I made mine in case you want to kind of duplicate mine. And so this bead here, this bead was made using paper. And so this is the actual paper that I used. Used a paper straw. In fact, this is the actual type of straw I used. I didn't use a Halloween straw, just any old paper straw. And I glued the end of the paper onto the straw. I cut mine to 1 1/4, which seemed to be a very popular size in all the tutorials I watched. It doesn't have to be 1 1/4. It can be any size you want it to be. And I just cut this particular piece because I had this strip of paper and it fit. So I cut the straw to fit this strip of paper. So I just glued the edge here down and you just roll it really tight. And I would just, I'm not actually going to do it, but I just added a little glue. I didn't even go all the way to the edge because I didn't need to. And then I would roll it tight, add a little bit more glue, and I only rolled it a couple times. You can see here my bead's pretty thin. If you want a thick bead, just keep rolling, rolling, rolling until it's the thickness you want. Once that was glued on, I used embossing ink pad clear and embossing powder clear. So I just rolled the bead into the ink and then sprinkled it with the powder and used my heat tool. I do have to tell you though, I've never done this before, so I don't know if this would happen with any paper, but I was using digitally printed paper off my inkjet printer. So on one of the beads that I do not have here because it kind of got ruined, when I heated it with my emboss tool, the black on it just kind of went away. So I don't know if that's because it was from an inkjet printer or if my heat tool was too close or too hot, or it's a learning curve. So I'm gonna figure that out. If you guys happen to have tried it before and you can let me know, that's great. Now this bead here, I wanted to do something a little different. And so I needed to use black paper to cover up the straw. But I can tell you, after watching videos, if you just use regular old printer paper as a base on your straw, you can just make it as thick as you want, and then just add your other paper on top, so you're not using so much scrapbook paper or whatever fabric. So I just used a little bit of black paper. I only did a couple rolls, and once I had that glued on with the paper, then I just rolled it with this Halloween tool. And that's why I needed the black paper underneath to cover up the straw, because this is obviously see-through. So I just rolled that as many times as I wanted till I got this thickness. And I was afraid to use the embossing, which I'm sure I could have. I wish I would have tried both. I just didn't have time, but I decided I better use this triple thick. It's kind of like a glossy accent, or it's just a brush on gloss glaze. The only problem with that is it drips all over the place, so I had to put it on a skewer and roll it to keep the glaze even on the bead, and I had to keep rolling it as it dried, which is a pain in the butt. So I think I'm going to try this with the netting and hope that it doesn't melt with the tool. I don't know, it'll be an experiment. And but that's how I made this bead right here. And the glaze came out okay, but so I do want to try it with the embossing powder and see how that works. And then I just decorated the beads like you see here. It was just with jewelry findings and charms. And so that's really fun. That's a really fun thing to do. I know people were way into it a few years ago, but I'm new, so it was fun for me. And so my next little adventure was making these paper clips. I used as a base, I altered these clips that I found at Walmart in the planner notebook section. And so these are attached with a little bit of dimensional foam in between the two pieces of paper. There's a bit of a groove there. So what I did was I took a marker and inked inside that groove just in case I didn't want any white showing. And once that was done, this is an inch, so I took an inch punch and punched out the papers that I wanted, you know, 2 for each clip. And then I just glued them on using regular glue. And then I again used the triple thick. You have to use it on one side, let it dry 24 hours. Don't skimp on the hours there, or you'll have a muddied, you won't get quite the glaze. And then turn it over, do the other side, wait for 24 hours. Once that is dry, I just took some clear tacky glue and a toothpick, and I just shoved little dots of glue down in there. So when you're putting on your glaze, you want to make sure your glaze doesn't cover up that little groove. If you find these again at Walmart and you want to try it, anyway, just make sure the glue doesn't get down in there. And then I just took my fun fur and again use the toothpick and shove that down into that groove. I don't know, I'm trying it on one that's already done. There's a groove here, and I'm just getting that piece of yarn in that groove, so only the eyelash part showing. So this is called Fun Fur by Lion Brand Company. I don't have the label anymore, it fell off and I don't happen to it, but some people call it eyelash trim, so I don't know, you know, that might help you find it. I found mine on eBay, but I know they have black on in Hobby Lobby and Joanna and stuff. This burnt orange color I found on eBay. Okay, so my little Halloween spiderweb flower. This was really fun to make, and no, I did not crochet that or tat it or whatever you call it. I found these at an Etsy store. They came in a big size and a little size, so both of these in one package. I will try to link the company below if I can find it again. I got them a while ago, so I don't really remember. And to make my flowers, I used this rose lace trim that I found at Joann, and I cut a flower off, and then I just trimmed away the lace part underneath, and there's a little bit of netting too. You could trim that off too. Now each rose is attached to the next with the ribbon. It's just sewn around and then it keeps going. So you're going to have these ribbon ends. If I felt like they were sticking out so much and they were going to come off or become loose, I just taped them onto the back. But this one doesn't look like it has a very big, well, this piece right here, see, so I just took a piece of score tape. This is hard to do with these nails. When I did it before, I didn't have these nails. Anyway, you get the idea. And then I just taped down that little edge there so it wouldn't come off. I didn't want I didn't want it to unravel because they are all attached together on the lace spool. And so also there we go. So also I took my fun fur and I wrapped it onto this piece of tape just because it wants to go everywhere. This just kind of helps keep it in place. So I just hurried and wrapped that around like that, just so that only the eyelash trim part was showing, not the yarn piece. So then you have this, and before I glued it on, I took a 1-inch piece of paper and made a circle on the back here just to give the glue something to attach to, and then I glued this on. Now to give it that vintage highlighted look there, I used this wax by Prima, and this is called Aged Brass is the name of this one. And I put it on with my finger. I just got a little teeny bit and just rubbed it on. Just lightly rubbed on the edges there. It kind of came off. So what I did is I took some heavy gesso and put just on a dry brush and just put a little bit on the brush and just barely covered the edges of the flower with my gesso, just so it would give a better grip to the wax when it was dry. And for the spider, same thing. So this is my little, it's not a little metal spider, it's just one of those cheap plastic spiders that you can buy at the Halloween stores. I think it was like $2-3 for a package of little black plastic spiders, and I painted them with this gesso, then when they were dry, run over them with my finger just lightly. A little goes a long way, and hot glued it on to the flower. So that was how I made that. And so I did put those in a couple different places throughout the album, on the spine here, and then you'll see the spiders here. And last but not least, we have the dominoes. And sorry, they are packaged. I can't take them out. I forgot to video this before I started packaging. So on the dominoes, I wanted to use these little eyelets, and I didn't want to take the trouble of having to try to figure out how to drill a hole in a regular domino. So I figured I could just poke a hole with an awl on these little wooden ones. And when I say little, because they are slightly smaller than a regular domino. I bought them on Amazon. It's called Pressman is the company, I think. Yeah, Pressman. And they're slightly smaller than 1 by 2 inches. So, but they are made out of wood, and it was just really easy to poke a hole with an awl and then screw I just screwed the little eyelets in by hand. I used those ones by Tim Holtz. And you want to do that first because these are wood and sometimes they split. So you don't want that to happen. So after, you know, doing all this and then deciding it's going to split. So you want to do your eyelets first. And then the paper I used, there's all kinds of digital paper shops on Etsy that have domino shaped paper that you can print out, and that's what I did because I wanted a specific design. Now I could have used any paper with a pattern, or maybe you have something with an image small enough that you can just cut it out and do it that way, but I wanted something specific for dominoes, so I found these. It's called Calico Collage is the company, and because these were a little bit smaller, I had to reduce the print to 90%. I think it was 90%. Don't quote me on that. Anyway, I did end up covering up the number side, but I got thinking if you hang those, the number side would have been cute on the back, but so it's an option. It's an option you can do either way. And I Mod Podged the paper onto the domino. Then once it was Mod Podged on, and it was dry, I used again this triple thick, and I put it all over the paper side of the domino. You have to let it dry 24 hours. And then once that's dry, I just took my trim, it's like an 1/8 inch wide trim, and I glued it around the edges. And then I just added my spider charms. So anyway, if you want these to be hanging before you glue everything on, you could also put a screw on the top, or if you decide to do it after, you can put a jewelry bail on the back and have it hang. You could make it a pendant, or you could just hang that onto something on one of your crafting projects. So that's my embellishments for my Halloween loaded mini album. The swap hosted by Rosa Kelly of Rosa Kelly Scrapbooking. So please check out her channel and see all the projects that were made, and please check out my walkthrough. It was really fun. It's my first ever swap, so it was really fun to do, and I can't wait to see all the rest of the projects. I will be sending this in the mail tomorrow. So anyway, have a happy Halloween, and thanks for watching. Bye.